Survivor 43, the season of the sob story, or basically the last 3 seasons, the seasons of the just pure sob story television. That's all we're getting. It's frustrating. It really is. That's a big complaint I have for this latest episode of Survivor, week 2 here, and it was another good episode of Survivor, actually very decent, and it actually wasn't really pushing any type of agenda or woke agenda or anything like that. It's really great so far, actually. But I kind of have some notes down, and I want to talk about week 2. So we're coming off of Mariah being the first person voted out of Survivor 43. I mentioned at the beginning that it's the sob story episode because this episode of Survivor, I don't know why. Maybe it's just because we've just been getting it like almost every week or something, or just the last 3 seasons now. Tonight it just kind of hit me like, wow, these sob stories of all these castmates on Survivor, it just never ends. It never ever ends. You'll be playing the game, you'll be watching the game of Survivor, and then suddenly someone will be doing something pretty normal, you know, gathering wood or getting fish or doing whatever, you know, they'll be doing whatever on the island, and then suddenly they'll break into this whole backstory. Like suddenly they'll be catching a fish, and somehow it leads to talking about how their life has been so terrible and how they've struggled in life. It just feels so unnatural to me because you just know that they're having these people do this so they can have their little flashback on the screen with a bunch of pictures and their whole backstory and how this one event in their life really impacted them. Let's be honest here. Everybody in life will have moments that they struggle with some sort of thing. This is kind of the way of life. You know, life isn't all easygoing for everybody. Most people have struggles in life. It just kind of is what it is. Now, obviously, some of the things that people have gone through on this season, it sucks. You know, some of the stuff does really suck. I'm not gonna say it doesn't, but we've gotten to this point now with Survivor where instead of actually liking someone in the show based on their ability to play this game and their social skills within the game, they're now trying to tell you this is what this person has experienced in life. This is how you should feel about them, or this is how you should feel about them, rather than what they do in the game. It's just I don't really care. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't really care. We can get these moments every now and then when it's a really significant part to the gameplay, where you know you got 2 characters or two players interacting, and it just kind of comes up naturally, and just when it comes up naturally, you can tell it comes up naturally. But when it just seems so out of nowhere and forced, you can tell so easily, especially when Survivor and CBS literally cut to this whole backstory thing, and they're on this whole monologue of their suffering of their past. Like, I'm here to watch the game of Survivor. I'm not here to watch some documentary of all these people. I'm really not. So some of them are in this episode too are just ridiculous, honestly. I don't remember her name right now. I'm still learning all the names of the castaways here. And she had, because everyone needs a sob story in Survivor 43. She brought up this whole thing of, I have had ADHD in my life. You know, people have ADHD. It is what it is. She has ADHD in her life. And, you know, she struggles with dealing with that. And, you know, she struggled in school and teachers not thinking she's smart. And, you know, she had such a hard time thinking, having other people think she's not smart. You know, it was a really deep-rooted struggle in life that people, she felt a little insecure. She felt a little insecure during school and may think, people might not think I'm not smart. Some teachers might not think I'm smart or not. It's just, I don't see that as a major life struggle. Everybody has things like that. Everybody in school would probably have some sort of insecurity at some point like that. Like the way CBS and Survivor are now reaching to find some sort of montage to play over the screen, you know, with a bunch of pictures and sad piano music. It's just reaching now, and it's just so boring, dude. It's so boring. Like, there are some stories in this season, of course, that, you know, are pretty deep, and I mean, they're much more impactful than I guess some of the other ones, like I just mentioned. Like Cody, for example, he mentions this story about his best friend who ended up dying, and he died of cancer, I believe. I mean, it's a much more impactful story. I think I still stand by the whole they're trying to pack in as many sob stories as possible, but you know, it is at least a much more impactful and real life story that, makes a little more sense of something that would actually truly impact your life drastically, especially if he was just such a really good friend to him. And that one kind of made sense, but again, I'm still going to stand by my sob story stuff. So Survivor really just needs to squeeze out any type of story they can to play sad music so you feel some sort of thing for this castaway. It's exhausting. It really is. We also got to see Baka. I wrote it down here. We got Baka trying to do this girls guys alliance again. I noticed that one in this episode. It's just basically the tribe is split. Like they're going to do 3 guys, 3 girls, and that I don't know if it'll work. I really don't know. I mentioned last week I've seen lots of girl and guy alliances that just never end up working. At least that I've noticed as of recent. A lot of times they just don't work. Who knows? Maybe it will work at one point here. But once we get to the actual immunity challenge, I actually got the losing tribe right up on the screen here because they're kind of the focus here in the last half of the episode. Vessi is the one that loses the immunity challenge. They lost to a big puzzle challenge at the end, and by quite a bit, by the way. They didn't really get anywhere on the puzzle. They really flopped there hard, and the other tribes did it pretty quickly. So they lost the challenge. They're the ones going to tribal, of course, and they got to figure out who they want to vote out. And my favorite player so far is Cody. Cody right here in the middle, this guy right here. And he's definitely my favorite player. I mentioned this last week. He's still my favorite player so far. I just like his character. I just like his personality so far. I think he's got the most entertainment value, I guess, to Survivor 43 right now. He's just a very interesting guy. And he's kind of fun to watch on the screen rather than maybe some of the other people so far. They haven't shown as much screen time, I'd say, as they've had with Cody for a lot of the other people. Cody's is kind of like a standout person right now in this season. And he ended up going on this whole thing. He found one of the immunity challenge, like beware challenges, where they no longer can find a normal immunity idol. It's kind of annoying because I kind of want them just to go back and just do it like normal. Like, why? I'm actually very exhausted of all these different twists and turns to the idols and how the game is done like this. It's still, the game was still interesting even when it had the normal format where you go and find, you have the 2 tribes, you're going to go find an immunity idol, and then you're going to play the social game of Survivor and work around it and make it interesting. You know what I mean? They've just really, really turned it into a big show, which I get it. They want to make it interesting. That's how they want to try doing it, I suppose. But this time, Cody loses his vote at the next tribal. They are obviously the ones that lost, so they're going to tribal. And he got this beware. He found this beware immunity right before immunity. So he has to go to each one of his tribe members to find beads. He has to, not find beads, but he has to ask each and every one of his castmates, his tribe members, for some of their beads that they have on their bags that they gave them for Survivor. And they have like these decorative beads on their stuff, and I guess some people like to keep them for after Survivor when they leave. They like to keep it as like a souvenir. And they mentioned how that might be kind of a hard thing to get some people to do and get rid of. So there's like decorative beads he has to collect. He has to collect them and collect every single one from each player on his tribe to essentially make his immunity like activated. He has to activate it in that way. If he doesn't get that one specific bead or the beads from his tribe members, he will not have an immunity that is activated. And he also will still have his vote. His vote will no longer matter. He won't have a vote in the next tribal. So he needs to get these beads so he can vote at the tribal, because they have a set plan to vote out Justine. So they make it seem like right before tribal, they make it seem like he doesn't get all the beads. We actually have Noelle, I believe that's her name, the one with the leg. She wanted to keep her beads on her wrist. She wanted to wear them like a bracelet. She's like the only one that held out. She's like, okay, I'm going to keep my beads. Why not? I want to keep them. Why do you want to take my beads? It seems kind of silly. Cody made up this whole idea that I'm going to put them on this like makeshift hat out of leaves that I made. I mean, whatever. It's a little story that he made up to collect all the beads to get his immunity idol. And the way the Survivor does, the way CBS does it, they literally played a little clip later during tribal that he actually did end up getting all the beads, and Noelle ended up giving Cody the one bead that he needed, I believe. I think she still had some of them on her wrist at tribal, but he got all that he needed. But when he went into tribal, you didn't know that. So you go into tribal and you think, okay, does Cody have his beads or not? Does he have his immunity idol? Does he have his vote yet? And you go through that whole thing. Now, the first moment I knew that Cody did actually have his vote and his idol activated was when they showed them walking up to the thing to actually, make their vote. They cut it away. They cut it away so they didn't show Cody whether or not if he actually wrote down any name or if he just kind of went up there and said he had no vote or wrote no vote and just put it back in there. So they cut that away, and once I saw that, I'm like, okay, that's a little interesting. They obviously didn't show us get the last thing he needed to get his immunity idol and his vote back, so there's a little something going on there. And ultimately, he did have his thing back. He did have his immunity idol, and he did have his vote back, and he got that by getting his bead from Noelle. And I'm tired of talking about beads, whatever. It's a stupid thing, honestly. It made for some interest in the episode for sure, for him collecting all these things on his hat or whatever. It was something, it created a little bit of interest for the episode. But again, I would just honestly rather just see normal immunity idols. But this is the way Survivor operates now, I guess. But he did it. He got his idol and he's got his vote back. So they vote out Justine just like Cody had planned. It was 3 votes to 2. It was like 5 votes. One member didn't have their vote to have in this tribal because they lost it in the first one. They did that whole bring them out in the boat and lose your, risk your vote and all that stuff. Justine's gone, and honestly, I still don't feel much because this is only the 2nd episode. I honestly hardly knew her. It is what it is. We'll never see her again on the game because this is before the jury, so she's just gone now, and she is the 2nd member of, well, nothing really. She's just gone. She has been sent home. And so far, I don't really have any players I dislike yet in Survivor 43. There's just players I like. And so far, I did mention a few last week that I liked, but Cody is definitely the one castaway so far that has stood out to me. Now, I do know he had all the focus basically at the end of the episode because his tribe went to council. I think I have kind of chosen my castaway and my player to win the game. I don't know if he will. It's just my favorite player so far. I kind of had that same thing with Jonathan on last season. He was kind of the guy I was rooting for through the season, and I think I found my guy here in Survivor 43. We'll see how far he goes. So far, he's the most interesting person on the cast. So, I mean, I kind of hope he goes far. He's kind of entertaining to watch. At least keep him around because he's interesting to watch, unlike basically anyone else so far. Pretty good episode of Survivor, actually. None of the nonsense necessarily. Overall, it's a pretty solid episode. On to week 3.